March 17th, 1943. Somewhere over northern France, the sky was a steel-gray blanket, pierced by the occasional sunbeam that glittered off distant rivers. German Luftwaffe pilots, seasoned veterans of the European theater, leaned over their Messerschmitt Bf 109 seconds and Focke-Wulf Foff 190 seconds, scanning the horizon for Allied bombers. They were used to spotting heavy bombers, B-17 seconds and B-24 seconds, dozens of tons of steel hurtling through the clouds, bristling with machine guns. Those were the threats they had trained to destroy, the adversaries that made their hearts race and their fingers tighten around the triggers. But that morning, something entirely different appeared. It was tiny, barely larger than a car tire. Made entirely of wood, barely audible over the roar of an engine, it buzzed like an oversized mosquito, its wings, or rather, its propeller turning with astonishing speed. German pilots squinted through their gun sights, incredulous. "They're sending toys now?" One muttered over the radio. Laughter cracked over the frequency, sharp and incredulous. The craft bobbed and weaved in the sky. Erratic but oddly precise. It seemed to dance around every cloud, dodge gusts of wind, and maintain a level of stability that defied logic. One pilot rolled his eyes, ready to move on, when he realized the mosquito-shaped wooden plane was not only flying, it was disappearing into the clouds, faster than anything he had ever chased. This was no training drone. This was a weapon. A spy, a reconnaissance plane smaller than a Volkswagen, designed to evade detection, slip through radar nets, and collect information that could alter the course of a battle. To the Luftwaffe, it appeared almost absurd, a cruel joke. Yet, in the coming weeks, this tiny aircraft would humiliate the pride of Germany's air power, exposing vulnerabilities that decades of engineering had failed to solve. The Germans, who had dominated European airspace for years, had laughed at a mosquito and would soon discover it had fangs. By early 1943, the Luftwaffe had grown confident in its supremacy. Messerschmitts and Focke-Wulfs filled the sky, and German radar and anti-aircraft defenses had created a formidable network across occupied Europe. Allied bombers had been attempting daylight raids for months, but every mission cost lives. Entire bomber formations were shredded by flak and fighters before reaching their targets. The air war was brutal, a deadly game of numbers and precision, and the Allies were hemorrhaging aircraft and crews at an unsustainable rate. Meanwhile, the British Royal Air Force and the U.S. Army Air Forces were experimenting with innovations that could turn the tide. Their goal was deceptively simple. How do you gather intelligence without risking an entire squadron of aircraft? How do you map enemy positions, track movements, and guide bombing missions with precision, while staying under the radar of Germany's formidable air defenses? The answer would come from an unexpected source. A plane so small, so lightweight, and so ingeniously simple that it would seem impossible to succeed. The engineers at the top-secret Airborne Forces experimental establishment in Britain had a radical idea. Instead of building bigger, faster, or more heavily armed aircraft, they would build something smaller, almost ridiculously small. They would strip away everything unnecessary, no armor, no heavy guns, no bulky fuselage, leaving only what was required to fly, photograph, and survive. The result was the Wooden Mosquito, a craft that weighed less than 1,000 pounds, had a wingspan just over 12 feet, and could achieve speeds up to 180 miles per hour. Its wooden construction made it virtually invisible to radar, while its diminutive size meant it could slip past anti-aircraft guns without being targeted. This innovation was not born from whimsy, it was born from desperation. The Allies had already learned the cost of flying conventional bombers into heavily defended territory. Each B-17 lost represented 10 trained men, 12 machine guns, 4,500 pounds of bombs, and nearly $200,000 in 1,940 seconds dollars, a staggering price to pay for intelligence that might be out of date by the time it returned. But a small, expendable wooden plane could take risks. No human crew could survive. It could slip in silently, capture critical data, and slip out before anyone knew it was there. German intelligence, of course, had no idea this was coming. For decades, they had trained their pilots to detect threats with size, radar signature, and engine noise. A tiny wooden mosquito simply did not fit their mental model of warfare. To them, anything that small could not possibly carry cameras, fuel, or the engineering precision required to fly hundreds of miles over hostile territory. It was a joke, and jokes, they thought, were harmless. Yet, as the first wooden mosquito lifted off the airfield that spring, carrying just enough fuel for a 150-mile reconnaissance flight, the joke was about to become a nightmare. Within hours, German radar stations noted a fleeting blip too small to track properly. Pilots scrambled, engines screaming, only to find themselves chasing thin air. Over the next few missions, the pattern became unmistakable. Wherever the mosquito flew, Allied bombers followed. The Germans, laughing at first, were now scratching their heads in disbelief. Something small, wooden, and seemingly insignificant was redefining the rules of aerial warfare. April 2nd, 1943. RAF pilot Flight Lieutenant Arthur "Artie" Spencer watched nervously from the control tower at Heston Aerodrome. The wooden frame of the Mosquito rested on the runway, deceptively delicate, almost fragile in appearance. Its twin Merlin engines, though smaller than those found on standard fighters, purred with surprising power. Every detail had been meticulously engineered. The plywood fuselage, laminated for both lightness and durability. The precision ailerons, allowing exceptional maneuverability. And the streamlined profile, crafted for speed and stealth. Spencer climbed into the cockpit, feeling the surprisingly tight squeeze of the compact fuselage. His co-pilot, Navigational Officer Sergeant Tom Hayes, adjusted the rudimentary instrumentation. No gun mounts, no heavy armor, no bulky radio systems, just fuel, controls, and a small Norden camera mounted under the fuselage. This was reconnaissance stripped to its essence. The aircraft weighed just 9,800 pounds at takeoff, about half the weight of a B-17. Yet it promised something far more valuable: survivability. As the Mosquito roared down the runway and lifted effortlessly into the sky, engineers and ground crews held their breath. Would it sustain structural integrity at high speeds? Could it navigate through unpredictable European weather? And most importantly, could it evade detection from the Germans? Within minutes, the aircraft accelerated past 300 miles per hour, climbing above 25,000 feet with ease. Radar operators tracked a fleeting, nearly invisible dot moving faster than anything they had encountered. Back in northern France, German radar operators at a station near Rouen squinted at their screens. "Another blip?" one whispered. "Too small. Too fast. It's gone again." Fighter pilots were scrambled, engines screaming, but each intercept attempt ended in frustration. The Mosquito darted between cloud layers, utilizing its small size and remarkable agility. For the Luftwaffe, the result was almost unbelievable. A wooden plane, unarmed, unarmored, slipping past their finest pilots as though the sky itself had betrayed them. Within weeks of its deployment, the Mosquito had earned a reputation that would terrify the Luftwaffe for years. German pilots, accustomed to hunting B-17 seconds and Bf-110 seconds, initially mocked reports of a wooden Mosquito. How could a plane built from plywood and glue-out-maneuver aircraft designed to dominate the skies? Yet eyewitness accounts from the front lines told a different story. Lieutenant Klaus Richter, a seasoned Fo 190 pilot with the 2nd Jagdgeschwader, was one of the first to encounter the Mosquito in combat. Flying over occupied Normandy, his squadron spotted a tiny craft slicing through the sky at 340 miles per hour, weaving in patterns that seemed almost intelligent. "It didn't act like an aircraft," Richter later recounted. "It moved like it had a mind of its own." I pulled every maneuver I knew, loops, dives, rolls, but it was gone. We were chasing ghosts. The Mosquito's advantages were not just its speed or size. Its wooden frame absorbed radar waves, making detection nearly impossible, while its high-altitude performance allowed it to operate above most German interceptors. Combined with clever routing and minimal noise, it became the ultimate reconnaissance tool. One Mosquito, flying over northern France, returned photographs of enemy airfields, artillery placements, and troop movements, all without alerting a single German unit. The psychological impact on the Luftwaffe was profound. Pilots no longer laughed. They feared this seemingly harmless plane. Orders were issued to intercept. Yet every attempt ended in confusion and failure. German intelligence underestimated the Mosquito's capabilities, treating it initially as a novelty rather than a serious threat. By the time they realized its full potential, the Allies had already begun exploiting the aircraft for strategic bombing missions, supplying accurate maps and target data that would make future raids far more effective. In essence, the Mosquito had redefined aerial warfare. A plane smaller, faster, and smarter than anyone had imagined, capable of penetrating heavily defended skies while remaining virtually untouchable. It was a triumph of engineering over brute force, a testament to the idea that innovation, not just firepower, could dominate the battlefield. By late 1943, the Mosquito had evolved beyond reconnaissance. Engineers at de Havilland had modified the aircraft to carry light but devastating bomb loads, creating the world's first fast precision strike fighter bomber. Unlike the lumbering Heinkel, He 111 seconds or Ju 88 seconds, these Mosquitoes could approach targets at night, undetected, and deliver explosives with deadly accuracy. The weight limit for bombs was just 2,000 pounds, far less than conventional bombers, but this small payload was offset by speed, altitude, and precision. On December 30th, 1943, a squadron of Mosquitoes departed from RAF Horsham Street Faith, bound for Berlin. Flying at 28,000 feet and cruising at 360 miles per hour, they evaded radar coverage almost entirely. German night fighters scrambled, engines screaming through the freezing night, but interception was impossible. The Mosquitoes released their bombs on specific industrial targets, rail yards, factories, and fuel depots, and returned safely, leaving the city in chaos but the aircraft completely intact. The Germans were bewildered. The Luftwaffe had stockpiled anti-aircraft guns, designed to shred bombers, yet the Mosquitoes were gone before their crews could even aim. Traditional defensive doctrines proved useless. Speed and altitude mattered more than armor or numbers. The aircraft became so notorious that German pilots began referring to them as Phantom Wood, acknowledging the impossible combination of agility, resilience, and lethality. The impact of the Mosquito extended far beyond physical destruction. Its presence introduced a new kind of psychological warfare. Every night, German officers anticipated incoming raids, only to find that the attacks were not only fast, but surgically precise. Civilians in Berlin, Hamburg, and other cities described the terror of explosions from nowhere small, pinpointed strikes that left industrial targets crippled, while the aircraft responsible vanished without trace. Lieutenant Richter described another encounter over Hamburg. We caught glimpses of it. A wooden frame, 2 engines humming, and it vanished into the night before we could fire a shot. It wasn't just fast, it was impossible to hit. Every mission felt like chasing a shadow. Allied propaganda leveraged these accounts. Leaflets circulated showing a silhouette of a Mosquito above a burning city, warning the German population, "We are everywhere, and we are invisible." The aircraft became a symbol of inevitability, a constant reminder that Allied technological ingenuity could outmatch German numerical superiority. For the Luftwaffe, every Mosquito sighting sparked panic. Pilots hesitated, unsure if they could intercept the elusive plane, while ground crews scrambled to compensate for an enemy that seemed untouchable. By mid-1944, Mosquito missions had expanded to include sabotage, high-priority target bombing, and support for commando raids. Its speed and stealth allowed it to operate in coordination with intelligence networks across Europe, feeding real-time information to planners and commanders. For the Germans, the Mosquito was no longer just a nuisance, it was a strategic game-changer, exposing vulnerabilities in air defense networks and forcing a re-evaluation of conventional doctrine. By early 1944, the Mosquito had firmly established itself as a cornerstone of the RAF's night operations. Missions became increasingly ambitious. The Dambusters campaign in the Ruhr Valley had already shown the effectiveness of precision strikes. But the Mosquito brought a new dimension. Flying alone or in small formations, crews could strike deep into enemy territory, sometimes 500 miles behind the front lines without detection. During Operation Jericho in February 1944, Mosquitoes escorted by minimal fighter cover penetrated the walls of the Amiens prison in occupied France. The mission aimed to liberate French resistance prisoners before the Gestapo could execute them. At 10,000 feet, Mosquitoes approached silently, releasing bombs and breaching walls with pinpoint accuracy. German defenders scrambled anti-aircraft guns, but the plane's speed and altitude rendered all attempts futile. The mission succeeded in freeing over 250 prisoners, demonstrating that precision and agility could achieve what sheer firepower never could. German intelligence struggled to quantify the Mosquito threat. Radar operators noted unusual echoes, while night fighter commanders logged hundreds of failed interceptions. The aircraft's wooden structure, combined with its aluminum and balsa frame, absorbed radar waves in ways conventional bombers could not. Every time we thought we'd catch one, it disappeared, confessed Oberleutnant Klaus Bauer. It was as if it didn't exist in the sky. As Allied forces prepared for D-Day, the Mosquito's impact reached its zenith. Crews were tasked with suppressing German radar and fighter installations along the Normandy coast, a mission critical to the success of the landings. Flying at 380 miles per hour, often at altitudes exceeding 30,000 feet, the Mosquitoes evaded radar coverage while relaying precise targeting information back to command posts. Luftwaffe pilots found themselves in a new reality. Focke-Wulf 4, 190 seconds, and Messerschmitt Bf 109 seconds, designed to outmatch conventional bombers in speed and armament, were now effectively obsolete against this wooden marvel. The Mosquito could climb faster, turn tighter, and escape engagements without taking fire. Tactical manuals had to be rewritten in the field, as German pilots struggled to develop strategies to intercept an enemy they could neither see clearly nor predict reliably. The psychological effect on German aircrews was profound. Encountering a Mosquito meant facing a foe that operated on an entirely different dimension of warfare. Invisible until it struck, untouchable when retreating. Pilots reported hesitations and split-second decisions that often proved fatal. Every Mosquito mission reinforced the lesson that innovation, speed, and cunning could neutralize raw power and numbers, a lesson the Luftwaffe could scarcely absorb in time. By mid-1944, the Mosquito had transitioned from a tactical curiosity to a strategic weapon that the Luftwaffe could no longer ignore. Allied commanders leveraged the aircraft's unique combination of speed, stealth, and precision to disrupt German communications, transportation, and industry. Entire train networks were paralyzed in the Ruhr and Berlin regions, with Mosquitoes striking rail yards at night and disappearing before German fighters could react. One particularly audacious mission occurred in March 1944. Mosquitoes flew over 400 miles deep into occupied territory to bomb the Gestapo headquarters in Copenhagen. Pilots had to navigate through enemy radar zones, anti-aircraft artillery, and unpredictable weather. Relying entirely on instruments and pre-mission planning, despite heavy defenses, all Mosquitoes returned safely, leaving a trail of destruction and sowing chaos within German intelligence networks. The Luftwaffe attempted countermeasures. They developed radar-guided night fighters, experimented with searchlights, and trained pilots for Mosquito interception. But the aircraft's performance consistently outmatched every adaptation. Even elite German night fighter aces confessed that engaging a Mosquito was like chasing a ghost. By this point, morale among German crews was slipping, as they realized their superior numbers and firepower could not overcome speed, stealth, and ingenuity. As the war drew to a close in 1945, the Mosquito's impact was undeniable. Over 7,700 were produced, a relatively modest number compared to mass-produced bombers, yet each plane had left an outsized imprint on the conflict. Casualty reports, mission success rates, and pilot testimonies all highlighted one undeniable truth. The Mosquito had rewritten the rules of air combat. The aircraft demonstrated that innovation could trump quantity and brute force. Its wooden construction, initially a practical solution to conserve metals, became a tactical advantage against radar. Its speed and agility forced Germany to rethink interception tactics mid-war, often too late to prevent mission success. Allied operations, from precision strikes to nighttime reconnaissance, relied heavily on the Mosquito, proving that information, speed, and adaptability could outmatch raw destructive power. Post-war, the lessons endured. Aircraft designers studied the Mosquito for insights into materials, aerodynamics, and radar evasion. Military strategists recognized that control of the skies was no longer merely about bomb tonnage or fighter superiority, but about the ability to strike swiftly and invisibly. The wooden wonder had become a symbol of ingenuity, showing that in modern warfare, brains could indeed defeat brawn. By the time German pilots finally understood what they had been up against, the Mosquito had already secured its place in history. It was not just an aircraft, it was a paradigm shift, a living proof that speed, cunning, and innovation could redefine the battlefield. Across Europe, the legacy of the Mosquito echoed in every air operation that followed, shaping the future of aerial combat for generations to come.